Hello.
It's Yoga Sutras time. Hi, Roseanne.
She is quick. Hi, Nelly. Of course, she is
And
always.
of course, Nellie. I think Nellie and Roseanne are always having a little race to see.
Yesterday, for the first time, somebody I watched how the announcement literally counts down, and then when it's time and you're not there, it says it will start any minute. And then I was there right from the beginning. That was kind of fun. I never done that. Yoga.
And there is Hi Raj reminding us of what this is all about. It's about yoga.
Yoga. Yeah.
Hello, Roseanne.
Hi. It was funny because Raj posted that gorgeous list of all the links of the Yoga Sutras that he's been keeping track of for the last year or so. An old video of us in February popped up and people commented on that. So some people thought it was new. So I had a few messages of people saying, "Oh, you're back." So not yet. That was very.
And I need to go through the list of Raj. And put some of those into the YouTube. So anyway,
that would be good. It's nice to see that.
Take a look. I posted a couple things in the CC.
I saw it.
Yeah,
it's interesting. It's beautiful. Good morning, Govinder and Eileen.
Hi, Eileen.
There's a countdown. Ellie knows about the countdown.
Countdown. Oh yeah. What's Nellie counting down?
Well, when the satsang starts, that's why she's there always right immediately because
she's there with the countdown. Yeah, She's pretty quick like that, huh?
It's well organized. It's good.
Yeah, and there's Joel. It's Yoga Sutras time. Dum. And so anyway, here is where we are. We're starting chapter 2 now.
Exciting.
It's pretty exciting. And chapter 2, I don't have the titles on here, but chapter 2 is entitled Sadhana Pada. Chapter 1 is entitled Samadhi Pada. And so it talks about levels of samadhi and ends with Nirbija Samadhi. And so there's different ways of talking about this, but we can make some note that there's a difference in these two chapters. In some sense, chapter 1 is completely thorough and outlines the entire process. But then we have to actually do these practices and
just know about them. Not just know about them or pretending to
go into a little bit more detail. So this first block of sutras here, what I call them is minimizing gross colorings. And then the next little block is dealing with subtle. And if you remember our outline of Om, which has gross, subtle, causal, the levels of consciousness, then this kind of matches up with that. There's the gross level of colorings out here in the world, and how do I do that? And core principles.
Good afternoon, Mayor.
Then I then deal with the subtle. I'll put Mir up in a moment. Yeah. And then we go beyond that, and down here we go into the karma shaya, the field of samskaras. And so that's the causal plane. And that substantially is what occurs in chapter 3. Anyway, so there is some compatibility between these chapters, and this section today deals with the gross colorings. And of course, as we keep talking about, all of these works together. So when we try to break it up into chunks, in some sense, it doesn't really break into chunks. And like that. So there's a hello from Mir. Hello. Good day, Raj. How you doing? How you doing?
How you going?
Yeah. Those Aussies are pretty colorful people, aren't they?
Mm-hmm. It's nice.
You were looking at the YouTube channel. Good. I got a little bit of catching up to do on that, Nellie. But I've been working on it.
Good.
Joel says hello to Mir.
Yeah, he's saying everyone hello.
Yeah, hello to everyone. And so anyway, I will take this out of here now.
Bloody all right, mate.
Bloody all right, mate. I'm going to take that out of there and I will put this in. And so there we have the actual.
Oh, I am yawning.
You're what?
Yawning. Yawny, I said.
See, I'm showing everybody your yawn.
Oh, I'm finished. Maybe.
Pull your laptop thing down a little bit so that you're more centered.
My laptop, I'm on a desktop. But I
see. Okay, there. Well, whatever that is.
That's good.
Is that a separate webcam that's plugged in?
I can do like this and show you, just like you, show you.
No, yeah, I see. So it is a separate webcam. See, I can't do that anymore here with this Be Live. It doesn't offer me a way to change. This is
my only webcam because I'm on a desktop and so there is no built-in webcam that this one needs to take over.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So I should write them one of these days and ask them if they have an idea about that.
I would not have this. I would not have any vision or sound.
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
Anyway, so here we are. And I guess I should make this bigger so we can talk about it. And there we go. Sutras 1 to 9, we're calling this cluster or section minimizing gross colorings. In these first few sutras, specific methods are introduced on how to minimize the gross colorings, clashes of the mental obstacles, which veil the true self. The later sutras of this chapter deal with the subtle colorings of mental obstacles. So again, remember that we have I'm here.
Oh, where's that song?
Joe said, "Where's that Swami? Where's that Swami J?"
Good afternoon, Inika and B.
Hi, B. Hi, Inika. I can take this off and you get both of them.
What does it mean?
But I think that when it's this size, give me some feedback here. Is this a little hard for everybody to see, or is this readable at all? Probably depends on what kind of machine you're on. But I'm finding it seems to be comfortable to go back and forth between this and the full screen of this. So that's what I've been trying to do. But type some comment in there whether you can see that one that has the pictures of us, because then it's nice. You get our smiling faces and you get the text.
Hi, Ratan.
Hi, Ratan. The first part of the process of minimizing the gross coloring is called Kriya Yoga and leads one to the direction of samadhi. Some Kriya Yoga involves 3 parts. Now, it literally says it in the sutra. I know that in modern times, some people have, co-opted or borrowed or stolen or used or whatever it is, have used this term Kriya Yoga as being what they do.
There's Lisa.
Last week seemed small. Today it's readable. Good. Thank you, Eileen. And there is Leela. Good morning. You can see both and the text. Well, that's good to know. Take that out there now. And so, Anyway, so those three parts, and this is in that first sutra. Training the senses, tapas, studying yourself, which is svadhyaya, and Ishvara pranadhana, which is surrender of the kleshta. It is important to note that the word kriya used in a variety of ways. This was described below in the description of 2.1. And remember, the way I lay these out is so that in each section at the beginning we get sort of a summary of the whole thing, and then we get down into the sutras. The 5 kinds of coloring are related to spiritual ignorance, avidya, inus, asmita, attraction, raga, aversion, dvesha, and fear, abhinivesha. The process of dealing with these colorings move through 4 stages of active, separated, attenuated, and seed. And that's in Sutra 4. The process of coloring was first introduced in Sutra 5 of Chapter 1. Let's briefly go there just for a moment. And so there it is, Sutra 5. Vrateya, Panchateya, Klishta, Aklishta. There are 5 kinds of thought, and they are Klishta and Aklishta. And note here what Patanjali did. Right near the beginning of Chapter 1, he introduced the concept of klesha, but he did not here elaborate on it. He did not go into it. Waited to put it in Chapter 2, and in Chapter 2 goes into greater detail about it. Okay.
Excuse me, I have the hiccups.
Rip, sound like a frog.
Yeah, I have to close my mouth.
Yeah, there you go. And so we'll go down through all these colorings, but so this is, remember, summarizing this whole section. Ignorance of vidya, which is the first of those 5 clashes, is the root coloring that leads to the others. Hello? Oh, it's a Joe. Now we're in trouble. Joe's going to come and stir up Patanjali.
And Roseanne says in full detail.
In full detail, yes. Okay.
Listen attentively.
Full details. Listen attentively, yes. Anyway, I'm going to say here at this point, if you're ever inclined to make a list of something to memorize, or I'll say it in another way, if you're not inclined to make a list and memorize terminology, please do it with these 5 clashes if you have not done it. If when I say avidya, you don't remember that that's the first of 5 clashes, you have overlooked an extremely useful tool. So please write it down. Write it down and memorize these 5 terms. We use translation terms, but the terms that are used here are really very, very accurate. For example, we take avidya and we translate that into English and we call it ignorance. We can very, very much be off track because in common language, we use that word ignorance often in an insulting way about another person and their level of intelligence. You say that's an ignorant person. And the word avidya has a very different meaning. It's not about IQ. So these are 5 principles that are extremely useful to know. And the easiest way to do is, as the saying goes, suck it up. Memorize the 5 clashes.
Come here, Mom. I need to grab some water for my hiccups.
Yeah, why don't you go grab some water for your hiccups? The reduction in coloring through smati is looking like diverting the mind. Now, which sutra has smati? I know you like to come up with these terms, and then I have to say, which one are we talking about? So I'll just wait until we run into it, unless you tell me which sutra you want to talk about. But if you think, I'm going to just to make note of what you're saying, Ratan. If it looks to you like diverting the mind, I'm going to totally disagree with you. I think that's not accurate at all. We're not diverting the mind.
Ribbit.
Ignorance is of four kinds. Now, this is another one that is extremely useful to memorize and write down, but it starts with knowing the five kleshas. And here, this is just an opinion, I don't think here that it's important that we necessarily remember the Sanskrit terms for these, because they're very practical, down to earth. They're mistaking the temporary for the eternal. So let's say that Joe and I are sitting here in the ashram today, and it's a nice sunny morning, and all of a sudden we realize that the light in the room is not as bright as it was because clouds are coming over outside and the sunlight's not coming in. As some of you know, this room that we're in does not have any windows. There's windows at the front door and in the office, so a little bit of light comes in here. All of a sudden the room starts to get dark for us, and next thing you know, we hear the wind whip up, and all of a sudden the walls and the roof, the windows and the roof of the ashram disappear because we just got hit by a tornado. And all of a sudden Joe and I are sitting here in the living room with no roof, and we're getting rained on.
So we're flying through the air wondering what's going to happen.
Yeah, well, we may be doing that, and it's scary. Now, I'm making a ridiculous story in telling it that way.
All right.
But we all experience things in life that we go through a sort of shock factor that this event has happened. And if we are yogis, we will remember and we will see immediately what happened. Now, I don't mean that we see immediately that a tornado came, but we fell into a trap when we go, oh no, what happened to our ashram? What has happened here?
It should have stayed. They took it away.
Yeah, somebody did it to me. Anyway, the boo-boo that we made is called avidya. It's ignorant.
Mistaking the temporary.
It's not literally that we think that this ashram building that we're sitting in is eternal. We know that. So we say, well, I know that this ashram is going to be gone in 1,000,000 years. And we listen to what the science tells us, that in all likelihood, the earth is going to be gone in 5 billion years? Something like that.
You want to sit around and wait for it to
Let's not sit around and wait. I do remember one time years ago, there was a beer company who had an advertisement. I wish I had a copy of this because it really tells the story of this thing. And it shows a sunset, and the sun, the level of sunlight is going down, and it has a narrative. The speaker in the background says something about that the sun is going to burn out. And pulling up into the front yard of this person's house, in the distance is the setting sun. And pulling up in the front yard is a really huge tractor trailer truck, the biggest truck you can imagine, pulling up in the driveway of this house. And it's a beer truck, and it's got the name of this beer on the side of the truck. And so it's saying that, it's going to be a long night. So you better stock up on our beer so you have plenty of beer. Just kind of a silly, humorous image. But what we do is we forget that things are temporary. It happened to me again last week that I went out to start the truck and the engine didn't start. It went clicky, 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 clicky.
Oh my.
And then a couple days later, I was able to jump start it and got it running and took it down to the mechanic people, and it needed a battery. Well, I just got it a battery 1.5 years ago, and the battery went away. And so it was still had some trade-in warranty left. So this battery that I got this time was not very expensive. But I don't know if you've ever been through this, but to me, I know that cars are not eternal. I know they're not eternal, and we all know that they break. But at the moment that you put the key in and you turn it, and the car does not start, but instead it just sits there and goes ticky, 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 ticky sound. Isn't it true? Imagine yourself in that situation. Isn't it true that most of us, or many of us, were like me that day? There was a little bit of a response that says, uh-oh, oh no. And that oh no happens because of avidya. We have forgotten the temporary nature of car batteries. Now, it's not the end of the world. It's not a big deal. But if we are yogis and we are aware of this aspect of avidya, then it doesn't mean that the reaction doesn't happen. It doesn't mean that I did not internally go, uh-oh, when the thing wouldn't start. I did. It went ticky, ticky, ticky. So what did I do? I turned it off and I tried it again. And once again, it went ticky, ticky, ticky. And it didn't want to start. But I'm saying it wasn't it's not a life-changing reaction. But there was a little response inside that said, uh-oh, this was not supposed to happen. The thing is supposed to start when I turn the key. And the root cause of that response, and it was not a big deal, but particularly because I'm a yogi and I knew avidya. I mean, I immediately recognized that, I forgot batteries break, cars break. And so that's number one. And it doesn't mean that we literally think that car batteries or roofs are eternal, but this is the fundamental mistake. And so 100% of who you think you are out here in the world, and 100% of what you think that you own as being mine, 100% of it is avidya, is based on avidya. Because in fact, in truth, we are Purusha, we are Atman, we are Brahman, we are Shiva, we are divine, we are the pure light, we are consciousness, all those words over and over and over again. It's not that you think everything of your house and everything is eternal, but we forget that it's temporary. Impure for pure. A classic example of that is we think, this is really good food. You go to the restaurant, how was your meal? Well, it was really good. And then the person falls out of the chair with a heart attack because of eating that really good, fried food and all that something. And I know I'm being extreme in that example. We think that our intentions, our motives in relationship with people that we care for are pure. I'm pure. I'm honest. I'm loving. I'm compassionate. All those kind of words. You look at yourself in the mirror and you basically are saying, wow, look at me. I'm pretty cool. Now that other person, I'm not too sure. I can look over there and I say, well, oops, Ma Tree went away and came back. I didn't notice that she went away.
Hi.
You went away and came back. Where did you go?
I am froze. Everything froze. So I refreshed.
Okay, I just didn't see it. I was looking at the thing, and then I popped over here, and you were gone.
Informed you the way I did.
So now you are back. So Matri may look at me and think to herself internally, I am so pure, I'm so nice, I'm young, I'm lovable, I'm kind, I'm sweet, everybody likes me. But that old man that I keep hanging out with, look, he pisses people off, he's an irritable old man. Mm-hmm. You kind of get the story, everybody?
Can we have it in writing?
Can we have it in writing? And so or it could go the other way. I could sit here and say, the wisdom of maturity. And that poor child, she's just so.
We get it always. I get treated like a little girl. I get treated like someone high on a pedestal. I get treated like a woman who's nothing. It's all okay. It's all okay.
Yeah. So anyway, that kind of thing, we all know this. We can accidentally think of somebody called me as having pure motives and pure thoughts and pure emotions. And so we don't see little glitches in our personality.
I don't have any.
And yeah, I know. We covered that.
You're humble.
And she's humble. That's what you like to say. You know, the thing about me of which I am most proud is my humility.
Mm-hmm.
Get it?
Yeah.
Proud of my humility. And so this is an example of there's food and there's personality, where we think of ourselves as pure and flawless, and then when we discover a flaw, we discover an impurity. And so this naturally,
like that because I know this mind.
Yeah. And this is what happens as yogis when we hang out with this stuff for a while. We realize it starts to become humorous because we have all these concepts. We have all these self-concepts and think that we are pure. And, oh, I understand that I am Atman and all that. And yet here comes an impure thought or emotion. We confuse pain for pleasure. Give a good example of that, Mom.
Well, if you eat one chocolate, it's still kind of pleasurable. But eat 2 or 3 and see what it does to the body, and it's not going to be as fun anymore.
I got caught a little while ago.
What did you do?
No, Rojo looked at me. I guess I was talking and she just caught a glimpse of something. She said, "Open your mouth." I opened my mouth. She said, "Let me see your tongue." I said, "Okay." So I stuck my tongue out and she says, "Your tongue is brown."
Chocolate?
You had chocolate milk?
She wondered if something was wrong with my tongue or my mouth or something, and she didn't get it for a moment. And I finally confessed that I had a little piece of her chocolate.
Her chocolate?
Well, she had a chocolate bar that was laying there that was opened, you know, those little ones with little break off little squares. And so I walked up and I took one of the little squares, and it had been in my mouth and it had, melted. Yeah, there's Joe. I just caught that, Joe. Joe said, yeah, he's 100% Satchitananda. Uh-huh. Yeah, I'm 100% Satchitananda. Yeah, got it.
I can try to put on my earphones, but that's normally never happened here. It never helped with going.
You have it echoing now?
Not from my side. See, earphones. There's no sound going from the speakers into my microphone. So.
And the fourth one here is not self and self. Did you give another example? Oh, yeah, we got the chocolate. Pain for pleasure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you said a whole bunch of chocolate is not good.
Yeah, or when you exercise, it's nice and it feels good. If you do too much, if you overdo it, you will be over your own capacity. Then you also hurt yourself.
That's a good example too. We can do that in relationships with the world and other people too. We can have all sorts of pleasure, and then later comes pain.
It's always a mixture.
It's always a mixture.
It's always the pairs of opposites.
And the pain in pleasure is that the pleasure, once it stops, because it's temporary, then you experience.
Well, and there's another thing Joe just said, the pleasure is temporary. And so we see this one, the pain and pleasure, one goes along with the temporary and eternal thing. Because
absence of pleasure becomes pain.
Yeah, absence of pleasure becomes pain. Because the pleasure is temporary, and so part of it is the mistaking the temporary pleasure for being eternal.
And the self and not self.
Well, yeah, self
Speaks
and
for
I didn't
itself.
comment. Not self and self.
For whose self? For itself.
I think that's probably the easiest one of these, and
yet.
And it's, so to speak, the core principle of the avidya. It's who I think I am. I think I am male or female. I am a son or a daughter, a father or a mother. I'm a sister or a brother. I have a college degree in this subject, and that makes me a fill in the blank as a job. I am from this country, therefore I am a fill in the blank. And we do this over and over and over. So we build this whole constellation of identity of me and mine. And we just forget that it's all an act. We're being actors on a stage.
Oh.
And so this is avidya. Chapter 1 had the definition of yoga. Remember, that was our first 4 sections here. What is yoga? What is yoga? The principle of uncoloring the thought patterns was introduced there. We looked at that a moment ago. We were introduced to abhyasa and vairagya and a framework of the levels of consciousness, stabilizing and purifying the mind. And that's a foundation. With that foundation, we can now begin the process of reducing the colorings of the thought process. That's what we're doing. We're beginning that process. And we start out here at the gross level, but then as we turn inward, it gets subtler and subtler and subtler. And when we look at the items listed in chapter 3 of Yoga Sutras, that is very, very internal. It's things like earth, water, fire, air, space, the bhutas, the 10 indriyas. We talk about the indriyas, the cognitive senses and the actions, and those are what I do out in the world. Well, we gradually come to see that even those are avidya. We see only through a limited spectrum of light, and so we think that that is reality. We humans don't see the same way other people see. Some of us are what gets called color blind. So our internal perception and conception of various colors is not exactly the same from one person to the other. There's a thing I mentioned somewhere in there that a malady that I find very intriguing. It's called synesthesia. I've never experienced it, so I don't have direct experience. But apparently in the wiring of the brain, some people's nerves are hooked up to the brain parts in a different way. So the nerves that goes from the eyes, instead of being plugged into that part of the brain that deals with sight, it's plugged in part with the part of the brain that deals with smell, synesthesia. So it means it's something like 1 out of 25,000 people on average has some degree of synesthesia. And so such a person, when they see a particular color, for example, they may have a particular kind of inner sense of smell. So in effect, they can smell colors, or they can see sounds. There's a crossover in there in the cognitive senses. So it's just a way of observing that, that things are at the gross level. We rely on our senses as if they are accurate. And because they are not totally accurate, we don't see Atman, we don't see God, we don't see Purusha, we don't see Shiva, we don't see Shakti, we don't see consciousness, we see through these filters.
Joe posted something intriguing.
Joe said, my daughter-in-law is autistic. Tastes colors and sees music. Yes, thank you, Joe. Good example. Tastes color and sees music.
Fascinating that the owl doesn't need any light to see, and when it's light outside, does not see. We
Yeah,
need light to
the
see.
owl, very, very dim light, a little itty bitty amount of light, and it can see. But it gets blinded when the sun is out. I think they close their eyelids when the sun's out, right? It's too much and they close their lids and sleep, I think is how they work, isn't it?
The sunglasses don't stay in their head.
The sunglasses fall off the head of the owl. That's what it is.
That's why they close their eyes.
Yeah, they close their eyes because their sunglasses fell
It's
off.
a common sense.
But Joe has his sunglasses. I wish I had the camera. Has his sunglasses over the top of his ball cap right now. The light. That's because the light was so bright in here. The Shakti of Guru, grace of Guru and tradition is so filling this room, Joe can't handle the light. Anyway, yeah.
When all those false identities are ripped away.
Yeah, and so this first part of this thing is where, excuse me, we're looking at that. And here I put some articles. I don't think we need to look at all of them. And so anyway, here's the sutra. Kriya Yoga has 3 parts. Tapas, Svadhyaya, Ishvara, Pranadhana, Kriya Yoga. And so that's the starting point. And some have taken this concept and expanded it so that they are saying that the entire name of yoga is Kriya Yoga. And some people will speak of Kriya Yoga as if their lineage and their guru is the keeper, almost to say the owner of something called Kriya Yoga. I've had people actually get angry at me because they emailed me somebody I don't even know and wants to ask some question. They say, oh, by the way, I'm next week I'm having Kriya Yoga initiation. And I write them back and I say, from whom and what tradition or group or institution or teaching center are you doing Kriya Yoga? And I've had people get upset with me for asking the question because to them, obviously, the only real Kriya Yoga is the one that they're doing.
And Kriya just means action.
Yeah, they're goofy.
The question
What now?
He's saying Kriya just means action.
Kriya, the word Kriya actually means action.
And unfortunately, I've heard some people who say they do Kriya Yoga, they say it just means action. It's no big deal.
Yeah. Well, I'm one of the people who told you that. And I have heard it said in India. I have not heard this said very often, but I've heard it a few times in some people much older than me speaking about, older India, going back more decades before all this modern stuff, and saying that there's a question that you would commonly ask another person. Now, where we've gone now in cultures, a person will say to another, what kind of yoga do you do? And you say, well, I do Bikram yoga, or I do Iyengar yoga, or something like that. And these are modern inventions. But an older comment used to be, what is your Kriya? It means, what kind of sadhana do you do? What actions do you do in the name of sadhana? Remember, we're looking at the chapter on sadhana pada. And so here in the first verse of this chapter of this pada has in it Kriya Yoga. So coming from this is a natural question. You say, it's like saying, well, what is the emphasis of your Kriya? So the question is, what is your Kriya? What is your Kriya? And it means, what do you do? And so somebody might say, I'm so busy in life and I'm raising children and I have a spouse and I'm early in career and householder life. So mostly what I do is karma yoga because I'm always active. So I live the yoga of action. And so that's a way in which one says, this is my kriya. Somebody is very bright and very contemplative, and that person may say, you say, what is your kriya? He may say, jnana yoga. It doesn't mean that there's no bhakti. It doesn't mean there's no karma. It doesn't mean there's no dhyana, meditation. It doesn't mean there's no hatha yoga, but that person has a predisposition towards jhana. We talk about this a lot when we're going through the Bhagavad Gita, that Krishna is telling Arjuna, you need to do this and this and this and this. He's not merely saying, make a choice. You can do this or this or this or this. But that's the spirit of the question, what is your kriya? Anyway. And these three practices work together is the idea. When thinking about life, it's easy to remind yourself the foundation. I need to train my senses, explore within, and let go of these attachments and aversions. If you happen to memorize this sutra, it's useful. I'm not going to try to say that it's essential, like the kleshas. The kleshas are very, very important to remember. Tapas Svadhyaya Svara Pranadhana Kriya Yoga. What does it mean? It means I need to train my senses, I need to explore within, and I need to cultivate a spirit of letting go or surrender. The emphasis of Ishvara Pranadhana practice is on the release or surrender that is done in sincere, dedicated, devotional attitude. Now, I'll note here that not everybody agrees with this perspective. There's two phrases in this. One is Ishvara, one is Pranadhana. Pranadhana has to do with the surrender or letting go part. When the word Ishvara, that is an awkward word because when it gets translated into English and into the Western world, and people are coming from the Western religions, then the word Ishvara automatically gets translated as big G-O-D. And the person will very naturally think of Ishvara as being the God of my religion, which may be called Yahweh or Father or Christ or whatever the view is. And so which word has the emphasis? And I'm trying to point out here that the principle is in that of letting go. That's the key. It has to do with the letting go. Not that you put a photograph on the wall and that's called a picture of God. I have met quite a few Western people who look at the symbols in India and will see a symbol of Shiva and will quite naturally say, oh, well, Shiva is the god of those Hindus, and he's this blue-skinned guy holding a pitchfork, and not know that it's a symbol for the absolute infinite non-dual reality. So when we cross cultural lines, we see things differently. And anyway, so the key I'm trying to say here, point out, is the key is the Pranadhana portion of Ishvara Pranadhana. And if you explore the depth of the meaning of Ishvara, here's something here. This is from Swami Rama from Enlightenment Without God, and the section is entitled, What God Is. Now, you don't have to agree with Swami Rama, but here's one attempt that I think does a pretty good job of explaining this thing that I talk about in a rather clumsy way. In the Upanishads, Swami Rama speaking, the word Ishvara is used to denote a state of collective consciousness. Thus, God is not a being that sits on a high pedestal beyond the sun, moon, and stars. God is actually the state of ultimate reality. But due to the lack of direct experience, God has been personified and given various names and forms by religions throughout the ages. when one expands one's individual consciousness to the universal consciousness, it is called self-realization. For the individual self has realized the unity of diversity, the very underlying principle or universal self beneath all forms and names. The great sages of the Upanishads avoid the confusions related to conceptions of God and encourage students to be honest and sincere in their quests for self-realization. Upanishadic philosophy provides various methods for unfolding higher levels of truth and helps students to be able to unravel the mysteries of the individual and the universe. And of course, the Upanishads are about yoga. And as you know, when we keep going through the core text, we keep going through and visiting, has a lot to do with Yoga Sutras, what we're talking about today. And a lot is the yoga that's in the Upanishad and the yoga in the Bhagavad Gita and the yoga that's in the Tripura Rahasya, which is a tantric text. And so here's some more. I don't know if we need to read all this thing. This is what I mentioned here. If you want to come back and read it. Some modern teachers consider the entire Yoga Sutras to be Kriya Yoga. Somebody must have said yoga. That's a Roseanne yoga. 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 Mm-hmm. That yoga of action, Kriya Yoga, is practiced. Why? That Kriya Yoga is done for two reasons: to bring about samadhi and to minimize the gross colorings.
Come as a package.
There's the klesha and there's the minimize. So it's literally to minimize the klesha. And the bhavana, to bring about the bhava, the experience of samadhi. So it literally, this is said, this is no stretch of translation. And there is for the purpose. These are for that purpose. It's why we're doing this. There are 5 kinds of coloring. Here it enumerates, Patanjali enumerates those 5 things. There they are. Avidya, asmita, raga, devesha, and abhinivesha. And pancha means 5, and kleshas are the kleshas. There are 5 colorings. Avidya, asmita, raga, devesha, abhinivesha, panch klesha. Maybe I should put a quiz. I think I'll put a quiz online somehow. What are the 5 kleshas? And here I'm just giving a paragraph that says this is a most important practice in yoga. There's probably in some sense nothing more important than the kleshas. When I didn't link it here, but when Patanjali says in Sutra 2 of chapter 1, Yogas Chitta Vritti Nirodha, yoga is the setting aside of the thought patterns in the mind field. What does it mean? Why are they thought patterns in the mind field? Because of the klesha, because they have attraction and aversion, and therefore they come to the surface of our mind field and are those troublesome thoughts. That then we, beginning meditation, we say, oh, teacher, how do I get rid of those thoughts? And it's the wrong strategy. We don't want to get rid of the thoughts. What we want to do is attenuate the klesha. And why are we doing these tapas, svadhyaya, svara, pranadhana, kriya yoga, the sutra we just looked at, is because it helps to attenuate the klesha and it leads us towards samadhi. And here they are just enumerated again. And they are in 4 colorings. There are 4 states, 4 stages. And here's that sutras. The root for getting of ignorance is, or of the nature of thing, is the breeding ground for the other. The avidya, the first klesha, avidya, the first one, is the breeding ground. It is the soil. It is the field out of which the other 4 kleshas emerge. Here's a way to think of it very simply. The first thing that happened is that you forgot that you are infinity. That's avidya. You forgot that you're in infinity. You forgot that you are this beautiful, vast ocean of consciousness. And after that forgetting emerges the individual wave that's in that ocean. And that's called asmita, the second klesha. And once there's an individual, then I can take on all sorts of attractions, the ragas, and aversions, the deveshas. And then once I build this constellation called me, then I have fear of it being messed with or disappearing or attenuating or something like that. Say something really wise, Mom.
Om.
Om, that was it, huh?
Original.
It's original, yeah. It's an original. We can quote her.
You're breaking up for me, Swamiji, so that's why I don't know if you can hear me now.
Yes, I can.
Something's wrong with the transmission.
Uh-huh. All right, I will refresh it. Can you hear me now? Can anybody hear me? If you can hear me, please type yes, I can hear you. Because I'm wanting to find out if only Matri cannot hear me or if nobody can hear me. I'm getting no response.
I can hear.
Joe can hear me. Can anybody hear me?
Good.
What's good? Roseanne can hear me. Thank you, Roseanne. Yes, Mir can hear me. Inika can hear me.
There's a huge
Daniel
delay.
What? Nellie can hear me. Everybody can hear me. And I am moving on the picture here, so it's not being locked up here. Nilesh, yes, very clear. So something is goofy with Mom. I can hear you typing.
Huh.
Oops, she went away. She's coming back.
Hi, Swamiji.
Hi.
Now it's back in instant. I instantly hear myself back. The echo is very short.
I see. Okay, everybody else was hearing me.
Yeah, I was on something in transmission.
Yeah, okay.
So that's why I didn't know what you were saying. You were asking me something, to say something wise, but I didn't really
And you said
your last sentence. And there it was.
Anyway, the root for getting or ignorance, the avidya, is the breeding ground for the other four, the other of the five. And each of these is in one of four states. Here's another level. When you go back and you try to remember this stuff about the kleshas, this is another dimension of the kleshas. The kleshas are dormant or inactive. This is what happens with our kleshas when we are in bed in deep sleep. When we are in bed sleeping but not in deep sleep, we are dreaming. Why are we dreaming? Because the klishta vrittis, the thought patterns, the samskaras, have awakened into the level of dreams. And so we become little movie producers and we have all sorts of inner dramas going on. Why is that going on? Because they are not dormant or inactive. What you and I are trying to do in meditation and yoga nidra is to allow them, the thought patterns, to come forward so that they can be not disturbing to me. And gradually we allow them to be in a dormant or inactive form while we are sitting there in samadhi or laying down doing yoga nidra. That's the principle. So stage one is they're active, or is that they are, I'm going the other way. Or number two, they are attenuated or weakened. 3, they are interrupted or separated from temporarily, or 4, they are actively producing thoughts. So if right now you want to go eat your favorite junk food, there's a bad food. This is where we talk about the donut store that's just near the ashram, a Dunkin' Donuts there. And if you know what donuts are made of, and the sugar and the trans fat and all that those are made of, you see these are extremely unhealthy things to be eating. But when all of a sudden it awakens and you walk by the donut store and you want a donut, now it is active. Well, if you find yourself going to Donuts Anonymous meetings to break your addiction to donuts, I'm saying that playfully, then what you are doing is you are interrupting your donut consumption, or you are separating itself from you, from there temporarily. You know, I haven't had a donut in a week. Boy, I'm doing well with my donut consumption. And a week later, all of a sudden, I find myself in the Dunkin' Donuts buying a dozen donuts. And it suddenly goes back to active. And unfortunately, non-yogi oriented people are often very happy to do only these 2 levels regarding bad habits. And it doesn't have to be just donuts. It can be the bad habit of how you use your mind and emotions in relationships, such as with spouse or family or coworkers. And so we can get caught in that, and we're using so-called discipline to force ourselves to not do that negative behavior. We know we should not eat the donuts, and I know that I should not be saying that kind of thing to my spouse, but it's a bad habit. And so we cycle back and forth between having a break from it. I've separated from that. I'm not doing that anymore, and it being active. And this kind of self-training, very, very often, I think most of us have experienced this and seen it in others in life. It often usually does not work, because ultimately you find yourself back in the donut store. So there's another level subtler than that, and that is to attenuate the klesha, weaken the attraction or aversion, weaken the raga and dvesha. And listen to that when I say that like this. This is the reason for the great value in memorizing those 5 kleshas, because then it's easy to see, what am I trying to do? I'm trying to break some of my habits, and I'm trying to attenuate the coloring, the degree to which I'm attached to donuts, or this bad attitude with my spouse, or something like that.
I had a week or so ago, a week or two ago,
Yeah.
I had a little dip, in the sense of there were lots of emotions going through the mind.
Yeah.
And I was in the store, and I was in front of the potato chips department. And I hadn't been there for a long, I think over a year, and paused and tried to find some that had the least fat in it, like the baked ones.
Yeah.
And but it still has fat. But so I had one in my basket. I put 2 steps, I turned around, and I put it back, because it was fascinating to see how quick the desire came and how quick it went. Not totally uncovered, otherwise I would come out.
Yeah,
But
that's exactly
like
right.
this and
Very
like
good
that.
story. Very good story. Thank you. And the same kind of thing that Matri just told in that story about chips in the store, the same thing can apply to habits that we have in relationships with other people, behaviors that we're doing. And so what we want to do is, she has with chips, it's been a year, she just said, it's been a year since it was active and producing thoughts or actions, and mostly it has been interrupted, and it has been significantly attenuated. But listen to remember what she just said, and all of a sudden there she was in the chip store, and for just a moment it was no longer dormant. She might have thought it was gone, But then the story she just told us is she realized, no, it's still there. It has been attenuated a lot, but there is still some of it that is inactive and dormant in the latent unconscious samskaras. And these latent samskaras, this is what drives us to reincarnate. So most of us have some arrows in the quiver, some latent desires that we don't know that we have. And then something in life presents it to us, and we respond to it. And we realize, oops, there was something there. So in the same kind of way that Matri just told us that story with chips, this is why you really do want to go back, write down the 5 kleshas, write down as a note for yourself, if you want to go one step further, the 4 kinds of avidya that we just went through, and then make another little separate list. You can use the Sanskrit words if you want, or you can use the English or Dutch, whatever words you want to use. I myself mostly do not remember the Sanskrit words. The prasupta or the tana or the chinna. What?
I thought you froze again, but you were just reading.
No, I was pausing for a moment. There's those 4 things. And so, if you're inclined, write down the Sanskrit and memorize them, or just pick one of the words. So you think dormant. I think of dormant and attenuated, and I'll say distance or separated is a word that common comes to my mind. And to my mind, this one I use the word active. So I'll say it's active, or it's separated, or it's attenuated, or it's dormant.
Yeah.
And so now one word that Patanjali does not introduce here, there's another level of this, that is where it's completely burnt, where the seed is burnt. It's not merely dormant, that it is literally burnt. And then there never again will be the reaction that Matri just said in front of the chips.
Yeah.
The example I use is of cigarettes because it can be so addictive. And so a person can literally become the equivalent of a non-smoker who's never smoked a day in his life. The thing
it's
is
not a stage because it's literally gone.
Yeah, it's not a stage. It's the klesha is literally gone. You still recognize it, so you say, well, what is that thing that person just put in their mouth? You say, well, that looked like a chip to me. What was that thing that other person stuck between his lips? Oh, that was called a cigarette. You recognize what it is, but there's absolutely no trace of klesha left. And so we can experience that. And this is not quite, but virtually what Matri has done with the chips.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was gone, but it's okay.
And if she bought the bag of chips, sometimes I will tease her and I say, Ma, you want a bag of chips? And I'm just being a troublemaker, provoking her.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you are.
But it's useful to realize in our unconscious minds that, wait a minute, we have some latent coloring, some scars in there. I'm not going to feed into them. So let me allow them to just keep getting weaker and weaker and weaker. And so here's a picture. You've seen this before. This is just a graphic way, an attempt to describe the reduction of the coloring. Now, I like these colors. They're nice and pretty, but our minds like bright, pretty colors. And so the idea here is not that we're trying to have a sterile life that's all black and white, like on the right, but there's a money bag. So our coloring for money can be very intense, or it's attenuating, or it's in totally latent and no effect. I use the spider, the symbol for fear. This is a symbol for food. This is a symbol for security. This is romance and sex. This, I don't know why I put this. It's a drink of some kind. And there I put a cigarette, just a habit. And there's an award for being wonderful and famous. And this is a little calendar, our attachment to time, and there is our car. And I use the ambulance as a symbol for our physical health. And there's my house. I'm very attached to my house, or less and less and less. An example of that, just a fun story, is two neighbors are out on the street and their houses are burning down in a fire. And one says, crying, oh, my house is burning down. Oh, no. The other says, but aren't the flames pretty? And so here's a little more description of these. We don't need to read through that. We're trying to hit the highlights here.
Yeah,
and here I
it's
tell
on the hour already.
Yeah, that's why I'm kind of racing through this, because we don't need to come back and go through this in detail, because if we do, it'll just be. And here's the sutra on the 4 kinds of avidya. Very useful to remember these. If you like to memorize the Sanskrit or make a note to yourself, that's okay. Or just simply remember an English word. You know, there is impure, and there is pure, and there is impermanent, and there is eternal. Anyway. And so this, we've been through this graphic before. Consciousness moves outward and veils, and our journey inward is returning our way inward. And so because of this, we cannot avoid the clashes. We just cannot avoid them. There's no way around it. Here's a little picture version of the temporary and the eternal of those 4. It's just a graphic little version of that.
Bye, Ro. And Johnny posted something nice.
Johnny posted, I thought I had left a lot of my old habits. Whoops. I thought I had that off. Wait a minute. I can't turn things off here. My mouse is not working. Huh. I don't know what's wrong. My mouse is not. I'm going to have to refresh here, everybody, just to get my mouse to work.
Then it's just me, I think. And interestingly, the echo is gone now. So the echo happens sometimes because Swamiji is projecting on a TV, and so it's coming back from that, which now has been
but except we've run that test several times and found that that was not what was going on.
No, because as soon as you were gone, the echo is gone. Now the echo is gone. I don't understand this. Why is there an echo sometimes and why is there not?
There's the Johnny comment. That, like, my mouse was.
There it is.
I thought I left a lot of old habits behind after I joined the Navy. Now, many years after being honorably discharged, they continue to reveal themselves. Though gratefully they don't hold as much influence over me as they did before then. Thank you, Johnny. Very, very well said. That's the example that we're all looking at here, okay? There we go. Let's see. I want to see if we can get down to the bottom here. Waves in the ocean. Not new. The klesha of I-ness arises from ignorance, occurs due to the mistake of taking the intellect to be pure consciousness. So even buddhi, we cultivate buddhi. We all know this. We talk about it a lot. We cultivate the use of our intelligence so that we can do discernment. But eventually we discover that even this is a part of avidya. I hope that makes some kind of sense. Remember, at the end of chapter 3, we finally set aside even sattva, sattvic buddhi, because it's not purusha. So this avidya business goes very, very subtle. It starts with things like chips and habits and all that kind of stuff. but we are very, very attached to individuation itself. We are attached to our ability to have intelligence. And here is the sutra that talks about raga, attraction. It is a separate modification of mind. And Devesha is aversion, is the third klesha. And the fear of death, even for the very intelligent people, there is the fear of death. And this is the fear of the death, of the loss of any of our false identities. This is the fifth klesha. And there's the end of that. So you probably want to go back and review this. If you've not done this, go back and review it on your own. And make some notes to yourself. This section here and these 5 kleshas really, really, really are
really,
a few more.
Really.
Okay, so thank you for playing. We'll come back together in about 50 minutes, and I've got us lined up to Matri will be with me. We'll use the 24 gurus of Dattatreya just as storytelling talking points. It's kind of fun. There's 24 gurus, and if you haven't been through that before, it's not literally that there's 24 separate things. There are, but anyway, we'll talk about it. If you're free, join us. If not, we'll do it, and it'll be in the archive. Thank you for listening and playing. Thank you, Mom.
Bye, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the day.
I think I'll sneak out and take a walk. I've been abandoned here now. Rojo's gone and Joe left.
I see.
So I'm going to push the button and then be all alone again.
See you later, alligator.
I'm going to be here all alone.
It was raining and it was hailing, and now it's windy and cold. So I already went outside today. So
it's not. It's
I'll make a hot chocolate probably.
It's a little bit cool. Maybe I'll have a hot chocolate.
Mm-hmm. See you in a little over 45 minutes. Bye, everyone.
Bye, all. Thank you for playing. Remember, silence after the Om. Okay.